The camera was rolling. 30 million people were watching. And Fred Rogers was about to do something that could end his career, get him killed, or change America forever. He looked down at the small plastic wading pool filled with cool water. Then he looked at Officer Clemmons, the young black man standing beside him in a police uniform, and said 5 words that made the entire studio crew hold their breath. "Why don't you join me?" It was May 9th, 1969, Birmingham, Alabama. In half of America, it was still illegal for a black person and a white person to share the same swimming pool. Hotels were being firebombed for integrating their pools. People were being beaten. People were dying. And Fred Rogers, on national television, in front of 30 million viewers, just invited a black man to put his feet in the same water as his. The network executives were watching from the control room. Their hands hovered over the emergency cut button. One word from the director, and they could stop this before it aired. Cut to commercial. Claim technical difficulties. Erase the tape. But Fred Rogers wasn't asking for permission. He was already taking off his shoes to understand what happened that day. You need to understand what America was in 1969. The Civil Rights Act had been law for 5 years. But laws on paper don't change hearts. They don't change the signs that still hung in windows across the South. Whites only. They don't change the violent rage that erupted when integration became real. Swimming pools were the final battleground. The last segregated spaces that white America was willing to kill to protect. Why pools? Because pools required proximity, physical closeness, shared water, the mixing of bodies in a way that restaurants and buses didn't require. And for a certain kind of American, that proximity was unthinkable. When public pools were forced to integrate, entire towns chose to fill them with concrete rather than let black children swim with white children. They literally destroyed their own pools, poured cement into them, turned them into parking lots. That's how deep the hatred ran and into this America. Fred Rogers brought a plastic wading pool and a black police officer. Officer Clemmons was 24 years old. He'd been on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for less than a year, playing Officer Clemmons, the friendly neighborhood policeman. Fred Rogers had created the character specifically for Francois. In 1968, in the aftermath of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, when black communities across America were clashing with police, when the image of law enforcement in black neighborhoods was one of violence and oppression, Fred Rogers put a black police officer on children's television, a kind one, a gentle one, a singing one, someone children could trust. It was revolutionary, and it made Officer Clemmons a target. He received hate mail, death threats, letters with photographs of lynchings, letters that said if he ever came to certain parts of the country, he wouldn't leave alive. The network received calls demanding Francois be removed from the show. Sponsors threatened to pull funding. Local stations in the South refused to air episodes featuring Officer Clemmons. Fred Rogers didn't care. He kept Francois on the show. He gave him more screen time, more songs, more moments to be human and real and present. But Fred was about to do something even more dangerous. It was a hot day during filming, the kind of heat that makes you desperate for any relief. Fred Rogers decided to cool off by soaking his feet in a small plastic pool on the porch of the neighborhood. Officer Clemmons happened to walk by, making his neighborhood rounds. What happened next looked spontaneous, casual. Just 2 neighbors on a hot day. Fred Rogers invited Francois to join him. Francois hesitated. He looked at the pool. He looked at the cameras. He knew exactly what this meant. "I don't have a towel," Francois said quietly. Fred Rogers smiled. "Oh, that's okay. You can share mine." And just like that, Fred Rogers offered to share his towel with a black man, to use the same fabric to dry their feet. to make physical the integration that America was dying to prevent. Francois sat down on the edge of the pool. Slowly, he removed his police shoes, his socks, and he placed his feet in the same water where Fred Rogers' feet were already resting. The camera held on the image. 2 pairs of feet, one white, one black, side by side in the same small pool. They didn't make a speech about it. They didn't explain what they were doing. They just talked about the heat, about how good the cool water felt, about being neighbors. And then, when it was time to go, Fred Rogers took his towel and gently dried Officer Clemmons' feet. A white man kneeling before a black man, serving him, caring for him, treating him with tenderness and dignity, on national television. In 1969, the episode aired on May 9, 1969. Within hours, the phone lines at PBS were flooded. The threats came first. Angry voices screaming that Fred Rogers was promoting race mixing, that he was corrupting children, that he was destroying America. Sponsors called. They wanted out. They couldn't be associated with this kind of content. Their shareholders would revolt. Their customers in the South would boycott. Local stations in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, they pulled the episode, refused to air it, claimed technical problems. The Ku Klux Klan sent letters to Fred Rogers' home. They knew his address. They knew where his children went to school. One letter was particularly detailed. It described what they would do to Francois Clemmons if they ever found him. The violence was specific, medieval, unimaginable. Francois Clemmons was terrified. He came to Fred Rogers' office after the episode aired. "Fred, maybe we should stop. Maybe this was too much. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me." Fred Rogers looked at him with those steady, calm eyes. "Francois, the people who are angry don't matter. The children who needed to see what we did, they matter. And we're going to keep doing it. But the threats, let them threaten. We're not doing anything wrong. We're being neighbors. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that's their problem to solve, not ours." Francois wanted to believe him, but the fear was real. These weren't empty threats. People had been killed for less, but something else happened after the episode aired. Something the network executives and the angry callers hadn't expected. Letters started arriving. Thousands of them. From parents. From teachers. From children. A mother in Georgia wrote, "My daughter asked me why Officer Clemmons couldn't use the pool at our community center. I didn't have an answer. Thank you for making me confront that." A black father in Mississippi wrote, "My son watched you share your towel with Officer Clemmons, and he cried. He said it was the first time he'd ever seen a white man be kind to someone who looked like him on television. You gave my boy hope." A teacher in Alabama wrote, "I showed this episode to my integrated classroom. For the first time all year, the children played together at recess. All because they saw you and Officer Clemmons as friends." The letters kept coming, week after week, month after month. They outnumbered the hate mail 100-1. Fred Rogers kept every single letter. He filed them away in boxes in his office. And whenever he doubted whether what he was doing mattered, he would read them. But the story doesn't end there, because Fred Rogers didn't do the pool scene just once and walk away. He did it again, and again, and again. In 1970, he and Francois shared the pool again. Same porch, same plastic pool, same gentle defiance of the segregation that still infected American hearts. In 1971, they did it again. In 1972, in 1973, every year. On the hottest day of filming, Fred Rogers would bring out that little plastic pool, and Officer Clemmons would happen by, and they would soak their feet together. It became a tradition, an annual reminder, a quiet, persistent act of integration that refused to be silenced or erased. The hate mail never completely stopped, but it diminished. The threats became less frequent. The sponsors stopped pulling out because America was changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. And part of that change was happening in the living rooms of 30 million homes, where children watched a white man and a black man share a pool and a towel and a moment of simple human kindness. In 1993, Officer Clemmons appeared on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for the final time. It had been 25 years since he first put on the Officer Clemmons uniform. They filmed one last pool scene. 25 years later, same pool, same porch, same two men. But now, Franco was older. Fred was older. America was different. They sat by the pool and talked about the years that had passed, about the children who had grown up watching them, about the letters they still receive from people who said that moment, that simple moment of shared water, had changed their lives. "Do you remember how scared we were?" Franco asked quietly. Fred Rogers nodded. "I remember. But I also remember knowing it was right. People wanted to kill us for putting our feet in the same water. Yes, they did. But we weren't doing it for those people. We were doing it for the children who needed to see that it was possible, that we could be different from the world we inherited." Officer Clemmons wiped his eyes. "You risked everything, Fred. Your career, your safety, your family's safety. For me, for this." Fred Rogers looked at him with that gentle, unwavering gaze. "I didn't risk anything, Francois. I was just being a neighbor. That's all I ever tried to do." Officer Clemmons has spoken about that pool scene many times over the years. He's been interviewed. He's written about it. He's cried talking about it. He says that moment saved his life. Not just literally, though it might have, but spiritually, emotionally. At a time when the world was telling him he was less than, dangerous, unwelcome, unclean. Fred Rogers knelt down and dried his feet with a towel, like Jesus washing the disciples' feet, like a father caring for a son, like one human being recognizing the sacred worth of another. And he did it on television, in front of the whole country, knowing what it would cost. That's not just courage. That's love. The kind of love that risks everything because it knows that some things matter more than safety, more than money, more than career. Some things matter more than survival. They matter more than life itself. Dignity, equality, the simple, revolutionary act of treating another human being like they matter. Fred Rogers died in 2003. Officer Clemmons spoke at his funeral. He could barely get through his remarks. He kept breaking down, overcome by the memory of a man who had seen him when others refused to look, who had valued him when others saw only threat. "He didn't just put me on television," Franco said through tears. "He loved me, and he showed that love in a way that told the whole country I was worth loving. That we all were." After the funeral, Franco went home and found the towel. The same towel Fred Rogers had used to dry his feet in 1969. Fred had given it to him years later, wrapped in brown paper with a simple note, "So you never forget that you are loved." Franco still has that towel. He keeps it in a frame in his home. He's been offered money for it. Museums want it. Collectors want it. He will never sell it. Never give it away. Because that towel is more than fabric. It's proof. Physical evidence that once, in a country that was tearing itself apart over the color of skin, one man chose love over fear. One man took a risk that could have destroyed him. And instead, it changed the world. The pool scene that Fred Rogers and Officer Clemmons filmed in 1969 is now in the Smithsonian. It's studied in film schools, played in civil rights museums, shown to children learning about the history of integration. It's considered one of the most important moments in television history. Not because it was loud or dramatic or violent, but because it was quiet, gentle, human. Two men, one pool, a shared towel, and an entire country forced to confront what it meant to be neighbors. Fred Rogers never called it brave. He never called it a protest. He never claimed to be a civil rights hero. He said he was just cooling off on a hot day. And when a friend needed to cool off too, he shared what he had. That's all. But sometimes, that's all is everything. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is treat another human being like they're human. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is share your towel. And sometimes the quietest acts of love echo louder than any speech, any law, any march. Because love doesn't need to shout. It just needs to act. And on May 9th, 1969, Fred Rogers acted. Not with violence, not with rhetoric, but with a plastic pool, a towel, and a simple invitation. Why don't you join me? Those 5 words broke a barrier that hatred had built. Those 5 words showed millions of children that the color of skin doesn't matter. That kindness is stronger than fear. That we can be better than the world we were born into. Officer Clemmons said it best years later. Fred didn't just integrate a pool. He integrated our hearts, and that's the legacy that matters. Not the awards, not the fame, not the accolades, the hearts. The changed hearts, the children who grew up watching a white man and a black man share a pool and decided that's what normal should look like. The children who became adults and chose kindness over hatred. The children who are now parents, teaching their own children that everyone deserves dignity, respect, and a place at the table, or, in this case, in the pool. That's what Fred Rogers gave us. Not just a television show, but a blueprint for how to be human. How to be brave when it's terrifying. How to love when it's dangerous. How to share your towel when the whole world is screaming at you to keep it for yourself. That's the real story of Fred Rogers. Not the cardigan. Not the songs. Not the puppets, the pool, the towel. The black man and the white man with their feet in the same water. 2 neighbors. On a hot day. Cooling off together. And changing everything.